right, Mike Van Wyck assaults Jeff Nippard, throat punch, straight to the jugular. Everybody's making a freaking video on this. I'm not gonna go into all the details. These two guys have a beef. It was online, and then they go to the same gym in freaking Canadian, ended up with Mike Van Wyck, who we're gonna call the bro science dude, throat punching, assaulting the science dude. I'm condemning Mike Van Wyck's actions, but more importantly, what can we draw from this scenario to apply to our own training to make more gains? And this directly illuminates what the lesson is here, so I'm gonna share it with you so you can go get a little bit bigger, grow your freaking muscles. Number one, you have these two opposing ideologies. You've got science-based lifting versus bro science. And these two things clash. The two groups don't really agree, and most people are either in one camp or the other. And the reason that the bro science individuals get triggered and upset and insecure and emotional from science-based lifting content, which a lot of times is easily defended. And a lot of people react like, why are you getting mad at Jeff? I mean, he just reviews the literature and he gives a very balanced, reasonable, logical take. This makes no sense that anyone would have animosity towards this person. Well, the reason that there may be some triggered, insecure people from Jeff Nippard's content is because a lot of individuals who choose to go about their muscle building process not really worried too much about textbooks and science and all the details can establish immense results. And I'm sure a lot of you can agree. You see a big freaking dude in the gym that knows nothing about science. Ronnie Coleman, science-based training, optimal training, did not exist when Ronnie Coleman was around, okay? And in my opinion, that's the most muscle that is probably possible on a human body. Obviously he's on gear and all this other stuff, but he doesn't know shit about optimal training. He's just in there, lightweight, baby. Lightweight ain't nothing but a peanut. Just training his ass off, blasting gear, lifting heavy, going psycho mode, all right? And the reason I'm bringing that up is because it represents the process for a lot of people. And if you go to that level and it appeals to your temperament to just not worry about the details and just train your ass off and channel aggression into the gym, push yourself to the absolute limit, keep showing up over and over and find ways to continuously progress your training without worrying about the underlying analysis of the process going on, you can get massive. You can get freaking massive. And if that's been your lived experience, which is probably, I don't know a ton about Mike Van Wyck, but I'm assuming that's been his life experience. And he's developed a large muscular body, gear or not, whatever. He's going, why do you think, you science-based dudes, why, if you're so smart, why aren't you bigger? So he's feeling insecure because he's going, my lived experience is that it really ain't that deep, man. It really ain't that deep. And I'm in here living this. This is my life. And you guys come along and make it seem like I don't know what I'm doing. So that's what you need to realize is it triggers people who are emotionally attached to their process based on their reality because they've seen it be very powerful and they've lived it. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears in. And I can kind of relate to this. And then somebody else comes along and represents that whole process that you've lived deeply and passionately in a completely different way, simultaneously being a little bit condescending and pretentious. So if you're not a grounded, solid individual, if you're on shaky ground and you're emotionally unstable, like it seems like Mike Van Wyck is, it's going to trigger you to feel insecure. This person's making you feel less than him. Jeff made Mike feel less than him. And nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be made to feel less than, especially if you're making content about fitness. Fitness is the main thing in your life about gaining muscle, and this exact person is kind of dunking on your approach and winning. Jeff's channel is massive. It can trigger you to feel like you're being pushed down beneath you. And now the point that I want to make from the science-based crowds, I don't think it's on purpose. When you look at what they're doing, it's easy to defend Jeff's position and say, I mean, he's just reviewing science. He's being very reasonable and just drawing conclusions from the literature. Why would anybody criticize this person? Why would anybody even feel a certain type of way about what he's doing? Why isn't everybody just embracing him with open arms? Part of the issue, and some of this is based on my own experience living in academia for 5 years for my undergrad, 2.5 for my master's, 7.5 freaking years of my life I spent in academia, and something I noticed from that environment is that most people that are very motivated to climb the academia ladder and base their thinking and their view in the world on an academia-based lens, a lot of times their motivation is not just to accumulate knowledge and educate themselves and then potentially share it with other people through research, published work, teaching, maybe different career paths. A lot of the time, It's because they want to feel smarter than others. Okay, that's the real truth. That is a deep, deep driver of a lot of people who hide behind science, knowledge, whatever. If you feel, for whatever reason, like you're not valuable, you have a lack of self-worth, you're small, like Jeff, maybe you got bullied, whatever, maybe you weren't popular. You want something to build yourself up and strike back. And a lot of these individuals, if you're, maybe have a decent aptitude to be fairly intelligent, which somebody like Jeff Nippard clearly is, somebody like Dr. Mike clearly is, we can use this knowledge as a shield to make ourselves feel better about where we are. And because that's part of the motivation, it's deeply emotionally rooted, it's not always delivered in just an objective kind of neutral, friendly way. It's being put out with the intention to raise themselves above you. So the word would be pretentious or condescending. All right, and I'm not necessarily criticizing these people, but that's just something I personally notice. And once you see it and you realize that, it makes a lot more sense. And a lot of people just look at anybody who's reporting scientific information or whatever. They're just reporting the truth and they're just being objective. We're all humans, man. We all have different emotional motivations for doing things. And a common trend for people in that space is that they want to get the status. The knowledge is a bit of a weapon. And they want to use it to strike down other people to make themselves feel a little bit better. Okay, I'm not saying that 100% this is what Jeff is doing, but I think it's a small ingredient. And that's what triggers other people who are just in the trenches lifting. And they're going, why are you being all pretentious and condescending as if you know how to do this so much better than I do, and I'm some dumb idiot gorilla guy who doesn't know what they're doing. Well, it's like, hey man, I'm here getting jacked, putting in the work, getting the results. Why are you so much smarter than me? So that's where a lot of this clash comes from, and both groups are at fault. I think the science-based community, particularly somebody like Dr. Mike, if you look at his content, the majority of it is based on shitting on other people and criticizing them and going, that's not how you work out. If there isn't a better example of weaponizing your academic status and possession of knowledge to strike down other individuals, to put yourself higher than them, then I don't know what is. And that doesn't mean that the information is bad or wrong. There's still value in it. But the nuance that I think a lot of people are missing is that these individuals, they're not doing it just because they're motivated to seek the truth through the scientific mechanism. That may be part of it, but a lot of it is self-motivated to make themselves feel better about where they're at, okay? And more often than not, those individuals were made to feel lesser than earlier in life. And if you're a short dude, a lot of times you get shit on, all right? Maybe you get bullied, maybe you get made fun of, maybe girls don't look at you and aren't interested in you, and you're put down. Well, I can get smarter than you, I can become a scientist, I can become a professor, I can elevate myself above you. And once I get there, I want to let you know that I'm better than you now because you people out there in society used to make me feel less than you. And it's an understandable process, Nobody wants to be made to feel lesser than, but unfortunately within human society and culture, there's inequities and it's a hierarchy. And some people are low in the beginning and they build themselves up, but it's hard to not build yourself up with a little bit of negative taint from the times that you were shit on when you were less than, and now I work my ass up to the top. I'm gonna let y'all feel it, okay? So that's what the dynamic is. That's why this altercation happened. And obviously, this Mike Van Wyck dude just can't control his emotions. Really, he needs to deal with that in a more mature way and go, you're triggering my insecurities. And it does not feel good for you to be making me feel less than you with scientific knowledge as your weapon. That's his own internal process that he needs to digest and be able to deal with in a healthy way. But not everybody's grounded. Depending on what's going on in your life, some people are hanging on by a freaking thread. All right? So you get a reaction like this. The deeper point is that for you, what you should do when you look at this situation and the way that I'm breaking it down for you is that you should land in the middle. You shouldn't identify with one group or the other. That's not going to prioritize the best results. Because you can't deny that there are some big-ass dudes who don't know shit about science, and clearly what they're doing is working to get results. But also, the science is valuable. And if you remove the human emotional motivation or desire to leverage it for personal gain or for personal motivations to climb the human hierarchy, being seen as somebody who's an educational authority. Dr. Mike, I'm a doctor, I'm an exercise scientist, I'm gonna criticize everybody else that they don't know what they're doing. I'm the authority on this knowledge. If you get rid of that human aspect, there's tons of good information that comes from the science world. And so what the most effective way to do is to go, I'm not part of either one of these fucking groups, and I'm not even gonna be involved. There's not potential for me to ever get involved in an altercation like this. Even if somebody is unemotional and can't control their emotions, they're not gonna attack me because I don't identify with the opposing group. So they're not gonna see me as a threat because I care the most about my results in the gym. I don't give a shit about feeling good and comfortable being a part of a fucking tribal movement that is gonna strike down and oppose other ways of thinking and living. And that's the natural root tendency in us as humans being shown in this altercation. So what you should do is take value from both, okay? So the crazy dudes that are in the gym just banging weights and never listen to science, you should look at that and go, okay, you know what? Maybe this process isn't really that deep. And maybe the majority of the value of what I need to do to get big muscles is just show up and train my freaking ass off like that crazy fuck right there. Be smart about it. Warm up properly, educate myself a little bit, make sure I know how to do the movements, and then just go to frickin' town. And don't get caught up in all these knowing to optimize the detail, because it really doesn't matter that much. If I don't show up and go ape shit on the weights, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, pushing my limits over and over and over again, I probably don't have the key ingredient in place to build muscle. Then, from there, okay, the science-based community, they are doing studies continuously on all these details and trying to micro-freaking analyze every little thing. There's gonna be some value in the shit that they find. And since I'm already a crazy motherfucker blasting myself, maxed out intensity, going to war with the weights, I'm gonna keep an open mind to any of the science, any of the new findings, and I'm gonna factor it in. But I'm not gonna fall for this idea that length and partials are the secret to growth. Because I know my training consistency, my training intensity, and my willingness to continue to push my limits and sacrifice other things in life to dedicate more of my drive and energy into lifting is what's driving the majority of my growth. But there might be fine-tuning tweaks that I could take, lessons from the science community. And since I'm not part of a tribe, I don't have to pledge allegiance to one or the other and reject the other one. I take the little bits of value from both. And people in the bro science community are too in favor of this simplistic training approach, and they're striking down anything that's more technical and analytical because it triggers their insecurity and devalues their personal process with it. And the science-based lifters do the exact same thing. The simple approach training dude who's absolutely jacked devalues their whole identity because he's suggesting that all this work and research and analysis really doesn't matter because he doesn't give a fuck about it and he's huge. So both of them clash, but both of them have value. So you take from the science to factor it into your training, but don't think that it's gonna, these little details don't really matter that much, but they are valuable. And the issue with, where Mike Van Wyck might be coming from, or somebody like Eric Bugenhagen, I think represents it better. He's a little more under control, seemingly. The issue is that anybody who's lived training their whole life, they see the sign and they're realizing it's just this is being so overblown. And you see the views and you see the comments of people, okay, now I can't do lat pull downs because Dr. Mike made several really analytical points that don't really freaking matter that makes me think lat pull downs are no good anymore. You should see this video. I can't help it, man. I watched it the other day. Because I'm old, man. I'm maybe, sometimes he makes good points that I factor into my training. Sometimes I'm dude, lat pull downs are not good anymore. He's oh, they are good, but they could be better, So pull-ups are better. Oh, and right now everything has to be a stretch. And the lat pull down, you're getting your back into a good contraction at the bottom. That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work. Even if you train with high intensity and push your limit, that doesn't work. So we got to do movements that are stretch. We're going to do pull-overs with a cable. We're going to do pull-downs, regular pull-ups instead. It's the exact same movement. The coefficient of friction on the pulley it makes it so that the concentric is more difficult than the eccentric, and that's not what we want, because everything is about slow eccentrics. I'm just like, just come on. And you read the comments, it's, oh, I knew pull-ups, I knew pull-downs weren't good. I knew this. And I was getting so sick of doing my pull-down, and I got sore the first couple times, and then after that, I just never got sore again. I was like, I don't think these lat pull-downs work. I knew it, dog. Thank God. I was just about to train back, and well, thank God you're here to let me know that this exercise is what is producing my lack of gains, and the coefficient of friction of the friggin' pulley is what is limiting my growth. Like, how are you buying this? Like, come on. It's like, if you sit down and brainstorm, all right, I gotta promote my sophisticated training program and app. We need a new content idea. Well, there's these tiny little details of training that we could make a whole video around that probably are going to factor in 0.5% of what's actually needed to grow. But we can make the whole video about it because it's going to make good content, and people want to always have this new idea and this new thing to point at as to why they're not growing, when the real reality is that they probably don't train consistently, they probably don't train hard enough, they don't find ways to push their training and progress over time. We can make a good video about that, and it'll get 2 million views. And a lot more people will sign up. Okay, let's do that. Like, it's, I don't know, man. It's like, it's not bad information, but it's so misrepresentative of what's actually important. Like, you could do just the frickin' lat pull down for your back. And if you train insane and never miss your workouts and get creative with your set structure and ways to keep pushing and adding more weight and upping the ante over and over again, just do that one act, you get a gigantic back, I guarantee you. I'm doing one freaking tricep exercise. This is what, like, it's just not the thing to focus on. Anyways, that's kind of a side rant. But within that content, see, even I get fired up, right? Because I'm like, it kind of devalues what I've seen to be so true. And if I wasn't grounded, I could get emotional, go, fuck you, Dr. Mike. I'm like, no, Dr. Mike's a good guy, man. He's putting out a lot of great content. There's a bunch of stuff I don't agree with, and I don't think it's accurate. And I think it's being talked about mostly for content reasons, and mostly for personal elevation reasons. Not, is this really the truth of what most people need to focus on? And that's what's kind of frustrating. But if you separate out from that and go, all right, I still watch his channel because I do learn things. And occasionally, he's a good reviewer of the science. And I'm like, all right, that's interesting. Let me try that out. I'm always willing to try something new. I don't agree with everything the science-based community is putting out, but there is some valuable nuggets in there that I want to try it out on my training because I want to grow. I don't really care about being in one camp or the other. That's the way to digest it. That's what I've found through the years, that you're only going to limit yourself by getting caught up and cementing your identity in one group or the other. And that's what this altercation between Jeff Nippard and Mike Van Wyck represents. Both are cemented into one ideology, one way of lifting, which is fine. But if you want to prioritize results, don't get attached to either group. Take the bits from each one that are going to help you to grow. Intensity from the bro science, realizing it ain't that deep, and then little findings and studies and things that will allow you to fine-tune your training can be useful. You land in the middle, you take the best of both worlds, you see the best results. You kind of limit yourself to one group over the other and then resist the value that lies on the other side, the other group's point, then you're going to limit your growth, either camp that you're in. And that's just human nature, to look for a tribe of like-minded people and have something to fight against some people that think differently. Resist that tendency and you'll grow more. Have a great day. Peace.